Okay, I was actually going to cover other information in this video, but as I was putting it together, the news about the earthquake on the east coast of the United States broke. So I figured I might as well throw it in here at the beginning, given what is associated with it as it relates to everything that I've been getting into about the 2017-2024 Great American Eclipse. Specifically, it just so happens that this earthquake had a magnitude of 4.8 on the Richter scale, which is incredible in the context of the fact that 3 days from now, on April 8th, 2024, or 4/8, there will be the total solar eclipse that will come right through here over Cleveland and through New York and kind of out through Maine and Canada. Meaning New Jersey won't be directly in the path of totality, but it's pretty close. They're going to see a good chunk of the eclipse. Just a very interesting coincidence then that a 4.8 earthquake hits here 3 days before the 4/8 eclipse. As it says here on Google, the earthquake was about 1 mile from Tewksbury, New Jersey. And those of you who are aware of Donald Trump's footprint will know that he has a golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. And when you look at the driving directions here, it's about 5.9 miles away from Tewksbury. And the epicenter of this earthquake was within 1 mile of Tewksbury. So the Bedminster Golf Club was very close to the epicenter of this 4.8 earthquake 3 days before the 4/8 total solar eclipse that has all of this resonance and association with Donald Trump. What are the odds that his golf club is so close to the epicenter of this 4.8 earthquake? I don't know. Don't look to me for an answer to explain this, okay? Because I don't have one for you on this one. Obviously, though, the first thing you think of when you have this earthquake associated with Donald Trump's golf club in the context of an eclipse, you go right to Donnie Darko, which opens the movie in a sequence where Donnie is led out of his room before the plane engine crashes through it and kills him, and he wakes up from that sequence on a golf course with numbers that add up to 88, signifying the end of the world that was just created. And I'll play this for you, but in this scene, there is an actual eclipse depicted as well.
Sun.
Notice how he says sun twice. He's really emphasizing the association between the sun and Donnie Darko, or the moon child, Donald Trump, born under a total lunar eclipse on June 14th, 1946. He says sun, it pans to Donnie Darko down here, or Donald Trump, symbolically, who has the 88 written on his arm.
Donnie Darko? What the heck's going on here? Who is it, Don?
And then Patrick Swayze's character comes into the scene and his head eclipses the sun. This character says, sun, and then he repeats, Donnie Darko, meaning sun, moon, or the 88. And then symbolically, the next part of the scene after it pans away from Donnie is this character's head making the eclipse. And incidentally, as a commenter pointed out to me a few videos back, I forgot to mention that Jake Gyllenhaal played Patrick Swayze's old Roadhouse character in the new Roadhouse reboot, which was the Zemeckis film that had all of the Baltimore Key Bridge resonance to it. that kind of infused that film with the Florida Keys and the bridges and the boats and the water as it related to the Great American Eclipse and the symbolic destruction of the national anthem in terms of the ritual destruction of the United States of America. Naturally, the first inclination would be to say, well, could they possibly have known that there would be a 4.8 earthquake right next to Donald Trump's golf course 3 days before the 4.8 eclipse? After all of this programming was infused into the Moonchild relating to these two great American eclipses that make the X over Little Egypt in the United States of America. And is that possible in some way? I don't know. Do they have technology where they could create an earthquake? That doesn't seem impossible to me. But at the same time, coincidences do occur. So I'm not going to take a position one way or the other. This is some wild stuff where this scene in Donnie Darko, which is about Donald Trump and 9/11, or the mirror twin of that 11/9, the day he was elected president, which is infused into this movie as well. The scene is Donnie Darko waking up on a golf course with a symbolic eclipse shown through the dialogue and the actions of the characters as it's filmed. And then a 4.8 magnitude earthquake hits in New Jersey, and the epicenter is right next to Donald Trump's golf club. And then just to add something on to it that's quite interesting as well, the initial notification for the time was 10/23/19. So you have the 11/9 in the time, or 9/11, however you want to view it. It's one and the same, mirrors of each other. And then you have the 3-2-1 tick-tock, end of the world, out of time idea in the time of the earthquake as well. If you remove the seconds from it and you just look at 10/23, 3-2-1, tick-tock. Which is similar to how Baltimore, the city, will see 88% of the total solar eclipse at 3:21 p.m. 3-2-1, tick-tock. I say tick-tock over and over again, getting back to the news stories about how the United States was considering banning TikTok a few weeks ago. And actually, while I'm on the subject of Donnie Darko, there was one more thing that I wanted to point out. Well, two things, actually. First, this is a scene that happens right after Donnie Darko wakes up on the golf course, where he comes back home and his mom is reading Stephen King's It, and she kind of glares up from the book and looks at Donnie Darko or Donald Trump. And it's such a fascinating scene in the context of the plot, which, as I'm sure most of you are aware, follows the experiences of 7 children as they are terrorized by an evil entity that exploits the fears of its victims to disguise itself while hunting its prey. Does that sound like anything else possibly going on in this world as it relates to how fear is used to control us in certain ways? It primarily appears in the form of Pennywise, the dancing clown, to attract its preferred prey of young children. And I hope you see the metaphor there, where Donnie Darko, the movie, is it, right? The movie itself is Pennywise, the dancing clown. In other words, they put all of these themes subconsciously into the films in Hollywood, and they use that to attract us to those ideas so that they can be programmed into our minds. We are the prey in that context. And then the other thing, real quick, is there's a scene when the characters are watching a Washington Redskins game, which is an NFL football team. And they show these slow motion images of Doug Williams, who played quarterback for the Redskins in 1988 when they won the Super Bowl. And Doug Williams' number is 17. Meaning they show you this scene of the Super Bowl winning quarterback in 1988 from Washington with the number 17, which again gets at the idea of the intentional programming as it related to Donald Trump and these eclipses, knowing that he would be president in the aftermath of 11/9/16 or the year 2017 when the August 21st, 2017 eclipse took place, the first leg of the so-called Great American Eclipse. Donald Trump, Washington, president of the United States, in 2017 as it related to the Great American Eclipse. So it's like the pill bottle that had the date 7/24/1988, which added up to 119 or 11/9/9/11, which is an example of the obvious fact that they knew he was going to be president and encoded it into this film in the same way they knew those towers were going to be destroyed and encoded that into the film because they are twins of each other. You take that and try to place it in quote unquote coincidences like this, where a film that subconsciously infuses Donald Trump into it also has a scene where the character resonating with him wakes up on a golf course during a symbolic eclipse scene. And then we have a 4.8 magnitude earthquake with an epicenter 6 miles away from his golf course. 3 days before the 4.8 total solar eclipse, that is the second leg of the so-called Great American Eclipse. That is the twin of 9/11. As spearheaded by the personification of 9/11/2001, Donald Trump. The other thing that I wanted to get to here involves the last episode of the Friends series titled The Last One, or also known as The One Where They Say Goodbye. I think I discovered why this episode was so prominently featured in Leave the World Behind. In addition to all of the other reasons that I've already gone into that involve the Matthew Perry ritual, where Matthew Perry, a star in the series Friends, died 3 days after the world premiere of Leave the World Behind, which was on October 25th, 2023. Matthew Perry dies October 28th, 2023 on a lunar eclipse 3 days later. And then Julia Roberts dated Matthew Perry and was also in an episode of Friends titled The One After the Super Bowl Part 2 that aired after Super Bowl 30. And Super Bowl 30 featured the Cowboys and the Steelers in Phoenix, Arizona, where Diana Ross performed at the halftime show that had a helicopter with a 9/11 on it, or an 11/9, whichever way you want to view it, that she used to leave the stadium at the end of her performance that was taking place on a big X stage. And then there is all of the Dark Knight Rises programming as it related to the Pittsburgh Steelers home stadium, Heinz Field, where all those scenes with Bane were filmed. And then Kevin Bacon's character in Leave the World Behind is wearing a Dallas Cowboys hat, which kind of ties in that whole loop between Julia Roberts, Matthew Perry, Friends, the X Great American Eclipse, and everything that happened in relationship to that from 3/22/2024 to 3/26/2024, that lunar eclipse window where the Tenet Crocus shooting transpired Three Body Problem and Roadhouse were released on 3/21, and then the Baltimore Key Bridge was destroyed by a cargo ship, metaphorically destroying the United States via destruction of the National Anthem Bridge, which was subconsciously depicted by Three Body Problem and Roadhouse. If you combine those two pieces of media together, the imagery that it infused into your mind had you ready for a ship to crash into a bridge, for there to be some kind of destruction event on water relating to boats and relating to keys, which further ties in all of the Eclipse stuff via Three Body Problem, the black hole that is the eye, and then Jake Gyllenhaal, who is Donnie Darko, who is an Eclipse character because it's depicting the Moonchild Donald Trump, being involved in an event like that in the Keys of Florida, which then further ties into Contact and the Magic Beach, as it were, which I got into in that Three Body Problem video. The quantum leap of consciousness into something else, making contact with the dark matter subconscious programming in a way that transforms. The alchemical mercury in that context that is 88 Donald Trump. And first of all, just looking at this, I noticed that Pearl Jam had a song featured in this episode, which is incredible because Pearl Jam is releasing their Dark Matter album on April 19th. Just a little bit after the April 8th, 2024 eclipse. And then the other song featured was Embryonic Journey by Jefferson Airplane. I mean, oh my gosh, you have the Airplane resonance to 9/11 and 11/9, and then you have the Jefferson resonance to Thomas Jefferson, who was president in 1803, the last time those two cicada broods synchronized, that are going to be coming out in this window of time as well, by the way. And then Embryonic Journey is kind of alluding to that idea I was just getting into about the transformation of consciousness into something else via this subconscious ritual that's taking place in relationship to the Great American Eclipse. Unbelievable. That isn't even what I was going to get into, but that's how this stuff works. And also, on the subject of It by Stephen King, there is no better example of Pennywise than Friends, right? In the way that they portray this television series to you and what those characters represent. And all of the people love them, but then you have the Doja Cat, They Live Glasses version of Friends where it just says demons. That's what these people who sell themselves out to Hollywood are really doing. In terms of the larger agenda, they come at you in this way that appears smiling and friendly, but they're really doing something quite else to you via the subconscious ritual. Anyways, I got sidetracked there. Let me get to what I wanted to get to originally, which is that 2 days before May 6, 2004, when this last episode of Friends aired, on May 4th, 2004, there was a total lunar eclipse, blood moon. Remember, Donald Trump was born under a total lunar eclipse on June 14th, 1946, which was also a blood moon. So this episode of Friends, featured in the plot of Leave the World Behind, is resonating with this total lunar eclipse and blood moon that it aired 2 days after, in the context of the Great American Eclipse that it also infuses in relationship to Donald Trump, who was born under a blood moon lunar eclipse. And remember from the last video also, the sequence that started with the eclipse bed frame scene that eventually gets to the point where there is the overt Donnie Darko reference. And then the next scene is the lunar eclipse depicted with the tattered American flag, which might as well be the upside down American flag in the context of the plot of the film that they show you in the opening credits scene. In other words, the episode, the one where they say goodbye, is kind of the central premise of Leave the World Behind. It is a constant theme throughout the whole film. The character who is obsessed with seeing it is in one of the opening scenes watching the second to last episode on her device, where the character in Friends says something along the lines of, "Hey, sorry boys, the ride is over." And then she is trying to see the one where they say goodbye throughout the whole film in the context of Leave the World Behind. And that episode, via association with the date it aired, is a lunar eclipse blood moon episode. And then later in the film, they literally show you this reference with Donnie Darko being in the dialogue, followed directly by a lunar eclipse, in a sequence that started with a reference to the Great American Eclipse, which ties the whole thing together in a much deeper way, as it relates to Friends, the Moonchild, the Matthew Perry ritual, and the ritual destruction of the United States of America as depicted in the plot of Leave the World Behind via a cyber attack. The whole thing is symbolically working kind of in the way that they showed it when Donald Trump went down that golden escalator and the tower fell, the currency exchange. That's what he represents. And so he was infused into the film in this way that is depicting that destruction of the United States of America, that falling tower that they show you with the sign that falls down and then settles as the UN monolith, where Trump's monolith is standing over the UN monolith in the actual plaza, and they depict that in the escalator scene where Donald Trump is standing over that little sign that looks like the UN monolith as he's going down the escalator. And, oh, by the way, Super Bowl 30, that ties into Leave the World Behind and the Nolan programming in all the ways that I already outlined, was in Phoenix, Arizona, and the April 8th NCAA National Championship game will also be played in Phoenix, Arizona. Which again kind of brings the whole thing back to where it started, as it relates to Eagle Pass and the alchemical mercury. Donald Trump gives a speech in Eagle Pass 88 on a leap day in a leap year in the town where this April 8th eclipse will enter the United States of America. And then, going back to the beginning, there just so happens to be an earthquake right next to his golf club, and it's a 4.8 magnitude earthquake 3 days before that very 4.8 eclipse that he has been infused into from the very beginning as the Moonchild eclipse baby. Like I said, you make of this what you will. I'm just reporting the facts here, okay? So that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.